Welcome back to another episode of the Recruitment CEO's Insider Guide podcast, the podcast that helps recruitment business leaders transform your genius into a scalable, replicable business model, working smarter, not harder. Why do I give myself such lengthy sentences? Welcome, I'm Katie Green, and today we're diving into a topic that has been on everyone's mind, especially if you're in the recruitment game, the personal and company branding on LinkedIn. Now, we all know LinkedIn is, for a lot of recruiters, it is where the magic happens. But why do so many recruitment businesses still get it wrong? And what are the challenges that are holding them back? And how can you use LinkedIn not just as that job posting platform, but as a funnel for real business development? And today, we have got Jane Petit, head coach at Centered Excellence and an expert in LinkedIn and recruitment business growth strategies. So she's joining us to break this down and share some actionable insights with you. So welcome, Jane.
Katie.
Great to have you here. Now, before we dive in, please could you tell us, why is it that LinkedIn branding is so crucial right now for recruitment business owners?
It's just that visibility piece, isn't it? I mean, we've worked in recruitment for a very, very long time, unfortunately. Not unfortunately for recruitment, I mean the length of time. And our USPs are very similar. I've got an extensive database. We do a proven search. We ask our market for referrals. And I think LinkedIn is a real opportunity to put your money where your mouth is, to show people, but also to engage. You know, the real changer, I think, in our recruitment industry was obviously the pandemic. I think pre-pandemic, LinkedIn was a little bit of I felt it was a room kind of full of suits and quite stuffy, and you could share your job post and you could share some market data. And then during COVID, this like new era blossomed where people were like, hey, I'm really struggling, and oh my God, my business is crumbling. And it's suddenly like, it was like people took off the suits and emerged in their houses and were like, come in, come and talk to me. And that has continued. Like, that didn't go. And that sort of personal brand meets business brand. And I see some recruiters doing it incredibly. And they're people that actually I know about and I can refer because they're just in my feed. And then I see 95% of recruiters doing it really, really badly from that way. It's artificial, it's dull, it's back to that kind of pre-COVID days. So I think if you really want to stand out as different in your market and you want people to know your values and who you are and what you stand for, LinkedIn is now your shop front. You know, what used to be a glass window with your jobs in it, where you could see people behind, this is now social.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I totally agree with you. It has enabled, hasn't it, the sort of COVID and the changes that have happened for us in the way that we do business and how, how recruitment and business is done. Is it has become a lot more of that element of personal side, hasn't it? Vulnerability is much more, accepted and liked. It's like, yes, show me who you are as a person, not just that CV. So why do you think it is then so many recruitment companies get it wrong? Like what is it specifically? Where is it they're getting it wrong?
I think we still go back to this, really, there has to be company profile, company brands. Like, I'm not disputing that's not important, having, the colouring right, the brand. So obviously, you associate the business with the unification of what you see. In saying that, I see some solopreneurs that don't have any of that are doing better than some of the larger companies. I think there's fear, like a lot of fear. What if nobody likes a vulnerable post? What if I post stuff about myself and nobody engages with it? I don't want to look stupid. The resistance, obviously, I do a training session on this, as you know. The resistance that I hear in that one is nobody cares about me. So I think there is some probably deeper soul searching. And I think for those of you who have teams that are listening to this, there is still that ownership level. Who owns your LinkedIn? Is it the company? Is it the consultant? And therefore, can you tell the consultant what you expect them to put onto their social media? So there's still quite a lot of confusion on that side.
Yeah, you're right, aren't you? Because recruitment business owners, what they want their teams to be active on LinkedIn. And also, I don't know, this is what I see is they don't necessarily know what they want that end result to look like. Like I want you to be active, but what is it? What is
But
it
the
that
Yeah, and I think there's that confusion level. I mean, I know years ago, back in my recruitment career, if I'd have shared some of the things that I'll happily share on LinkedIn now, I would have
yeah,
been probably brought in for a conversation because it
yes.
might not have, me sharing how I feel about women's rights, for example. There would have been that, who are you? Yeah. There's always that risk, isn't there, of who am I offending? And
Mm,
I don't mean like dive onto LinkedIn and start sharing political views left, right, and centre. And certainly, if you've got extremist views in any way, you might want to keep them to yourself. But I think there is something to be said for showing who you are, because you will have like-minded souls, and they're people you're going to work really well with from that side. But
mm,
if, as a business owner, you're communicating to your team, I want you to be active on social media, but please don't post about this, 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 and don't engage with those people and don't follow those people. Then suddenly you're installing fear into your consultants of, am I doing this right? Can I do it this way?
yeah, because you said it's your shop window, and it is, isn't it? And then there are certain aspects around that. It's your shop window. Me personally, Katie Green, people can see my LinkedIn profile, and I'm attached. I'm a representation of centered excellence, aren't I? So it's those. How do you manage that with those two aspects, isn't it? It's a bit
Yeah,
like Facebook. Yeah.
it is, but it's interesting, isn't it? No employer, in my experience, I mean, there'll always be a contradiction to that, but typically aren't monitoring their team's Facebook and Instagram profiles to see what they're posting and sharing. But because we deem LinkedIn as
Mm,
in some way connected to the business, we put some rules around it. And in all honesty, I think that's where, as employers, we probably need to step back from our team and go, look, we encourage you to get out on social media. We encourage you to build some form of personal brand and give them, like anything, it's training. This is
yeah.
marketing.
Yes.
LinkedIn, unless you are unless you're very naturally an oversharer, then this will feel very alien. If you don't give people prompts of, look, these are great ideas that work well on our LinkedIn, go and have a play. You're just going to have somebody that's suffocating under like creativity going, but I've got no idea what I can
Mm,
share. And certainly if you've got somebody who is fearful that it's going to be boring. I saw randomly, let's just veer off. I saw a great post yesterday that had high level of engagement. It was a friend of mine, a guy that I've trained for a couple of years. I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this because it's in the public domain. He's Scottish and he's ginger. And he went out for a client meeting yesterday in Scotland. It was a warm day in September, and he got sunburn. And that post engagement, because it's got nothing to do with recruitment, but in that post, he managed to say he was a recruiter and he was out meeting clients. His tagline is on point, and he's posted a daft picture of himself looking a little bit red in the face. Like, it's genius. I've got no idea
mm.
if he meant to do it, but either way, he's now got candidates and clients, and I've interacted with it. Oh, scholars have interacted. It's suddenly created visibility. It prompted me to
Mm.
send him a text to say, "How are you doing? I just saw your post. Really made me laugh." Like, who
Which is
else?
interesting because what you're talking about there, though, is a personal post on a subject matter that has nothing to do with what that person does in their job or their business or their service or their product. And yet you're saying that's a genius. And I
Yeah.
get why, I totally agree with you. So, for those listening, if I'm a recruitment business owner, how, because where would you go about starting with your team about, right, so we want to build our brand on LinkedIn, guys, so what we need to do is, it's like, how do you create that that criteria or strategy behind that? Because you got the tool, but it's like, what's the strategy that fits that tool, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is where you do have to process map it. And I would say it's initially feels more challenging, but once you get in flow with it, it's quite good. If I was a business owner now with a team, I would probably do what I'd call a melting pot of ideas and probably invite the team. This would be something, Katie, that I would do in good old fashioned over lunch or a breakfast meeting, and set the task of, guys, I want you to go to LinkedIn. I want you to have a look at what people are interacting with. I want you to look at what you buy into and what you like and what you don't like, and just make some notes and then come on Friday, we'll sit down, we'll grab pizza for an hour, and we'll throw them all on Post-its and stick them up on the wall or virtually on a whiteboard, whatever that looks like for you. Then you're starting to get your first blend of ideas. I advocate a calendar. So I always say do a 3-month social media calendar, because also we can still share the jobs, the client pictures in and around, but we want to taper it with a vision of who you are from that side. So I would, and obviously if you've got a team, you can mix up the prompts. So like person A might do this prompt one week, person B might do it the next week, and then put it over. But I would be giving them some questions to answer. So this week on LinkedIn, you're going to share a post about why you started a career in recruitment. Next week on LinkedIn, you're going to share a post about the key challenges you have in recruitment. Next week, you're going to share a post about, depending on what your target audience is, about how to survive the dreaded question of, tell me where do you want to be in 5 years' time, but you're going to share that through video. But the first thing I would do before you building any strategy is look at what your market's talking about and think about who you want your LinkedIn profile to talk to. And then get comfortable with sharing. So you've got to get comfortable with it first and see what works in your market. And then you can throw in your more, I happen to get sunburnt today style posts. I suspect that couldn't have been planned, because you can't plan for sunburn in Scotland. So that's just a throw up post that's worked really well. But you can take these kind of ideas. So a couple of years ago, on a Thursday night, I used to go to a gymnastics class, and I was trying to learn to walk on my hands. So every Thursday night, I put a video of me falling over or a static picture of me not walking on my hands, and put a post. And at the end, I did some lean to back to recruitment training, persistence, consistency. I ran that for 6 months. Like, I was bored of it. But every single meeting I went to, how are you getting on with walking on your hands, Jane? And then every outreach I did, somebody would come back and go, God, have you mastered walking on your hands yet? And I was like, this is working. Like, I'm not talking about recruitment training. I'm talking about flipping handstand walking, but this is working. So it was the action that created the strategy. When I did the first post, I had no idea I was going to do it for 6 months, but I was like, hang on, this is working.
So it's definitely linking things that are personal, slightly different. It's like you're saying, it's that business and personal together, isn't it? But here's, let me throw something else in the mix, because I think people listening are going to be thinking this sounds great. But first of all, I feel totally uncomfortable about being on LinkedIn, and I wouldn't, And then secondly, time investment it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need my team filling jobs, not being a marketeer.
And this is the back end and the front end of LinkedIn. I'm talking about branding, so I'm talking front end. When I'm not as heavily, because you could say, Jane, I'm going to go and look at your LinkedIn profile today, and you probably not see very much on there, because actually, I'm not using it as my key funnel for winning business. Well, as you know, Katie, I'm a coach from that side. So I do tend to be a little bit more ad lib with what I put on LinkedIn. When I used it as a business development strategy, I was messaging in the back end, and the front end was showing the people I was messaging who they were going to be working with from that side. So it was a very joined up strategy. Because what I didn't want, and when I work with clients on this, I find a lot of my recruiters are doing client acquisition through LinkedIn. So they're sending out messages to clients, trying to win business. But then on the front end, they're just sharing a list of vacancies, asking for candidates. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense, because on the back end, you're asking for clients. And on the front end, you're going, hey, we've got these jobs. Like, they need to match from that side. And I suppose reverting back to what you said about that, going out and winning jobs, that has to be the fundamental aim. So this is, again, where if we get deeper into it, it's looking at how you engage with those who engage. So obviously LinkedIn has got some incredible stats on it now, even for those on basic packages. So you can go and see who's looking at your content. I'm not too fussed about likes. I'm looking at engagement. I'm looking at who's stopping to see what I'm seeing. I'm looking at, is my avatar the right people? So the main people that look at me on LinkedIn are recruitment business owners. So we are doing something right. The right people are seeing who we are. If somebody likes and leaves a comment, I'm probably going to go and get in touch with them if they're the right market. from that side. So if somebody likes my post, that's a business owner, I will probably drop them a private message going, I've just seen you like my post. You've reminded me to reach out and say hi. How are you? Or I'll send a voice note. As you know, I'm a huge fan of those. So yeah, if you've got somebody in your office, and this is a risk of LinkedIn marketing, it's also a risk of cold calling. You just ring a load of people that aren't going to buy from you. It's a risk associated with business development. We have to think what's the end game? I want to win more vacancies. I want to win more vacancies from this target avatar. So what am I putting on the front end and how am I messaging them on the back end to make it a completely linked up strategy? Pardon the pun.
Yep. Yep. And so who should be responsible for that then?
Good question. And this will depend on your team. If you have got someone that you are dragging, kicking and screaming to do this, I would argue they're not going to be able to do this. So you create someone that can masquerade as them. My old MD, she may listen to this at some point, I wrote so much of her LinkedIn content, we couldn't work out which was her and which was me. I enjoy it. It's a passion of mine. So it worked well for me to do the company posts from that side. There's lots of different tools you can use to have somebody running multiple LinkedIn accounts and manage it that way. And also, here's a scary tip, your online persona doesn't have to be your offline persona. I would argue it works better if it is, but you can create that version of yourself that you're comfortable sharing, and somebody else can create that for you. So we were talking about this recently, Katie. If you're all in, go all in. If you're not, this can be outsourced, but it will require a level of sophistication of the person that you outsource to. Most people say admin can do this, and by admin they might mean Jackie, who finished school a year ago and has up until now just been doing some like basic admin tasks, and suddenly she runs the company marketing account. You need a marketeer to do this effectively, and somebody that understands socials and engagement. So it can be outsourced.
Right. So you're saying, first of all, make sure you have a strategy, but also make sure you've got the right person leading that strategy or actually doing the actions. And then you monitor that, do you, and evaluate that?
Like anything, you track the data. Again, classic recruiter in the room here. When I set up my own training company, LinkedIn was my predominant funnel for winning new business. And when I got busy, like everybody, I stopped using LinkedIn to develop new business. And then 2 months later, when I was sitting there going, oh God, I don't know if I've got enough business. If I looked at my LinkedIn, it'd be like the graph would be up here. And then suddenly 2 months before it was down here. So it's a funnel like anything that needs nurturing and needs kind of, feeding, watering, etc. from that side.
Okay. Are there any other common misconceptions that you think recruitment business owners have about LinkedIn that you think is important to address, but we haven't?
I would say there's the argument of just post anything, like just keep posting, like that's not going to pay off either. The something is better than nothing, I would argue, is not going to pay off. There is also what I call the lurker of LinkedIn, which works really well as well, is if you are deeply uncomfortable with posting, go talk to other people about what they're posting, because that will also rise your visibility by commenting and engaging if you don't want to share your own stuff. What I always think about is for LinkedIn, so sorry, common mistakes, but I'm coming back onto a solution. We want to be visible. So if I outreach to you on LinkedIn and go, hey, Katie, I'm a recruiter and I'm looking to work with your business, or hey, Katie, I'm a recruiter and I'm looking to work with you as a candidate, the logical thing seems to be that they will go and check out your profile. So what was the last thing on there that I want them to see? And also, if they scroll down my timeline, what does that look like? And this is where I think recruitment people get it wrong, is if you work in a several markets, for example, so let's say, sorry, that's my ghost. If you say that you recruit for HR people, but you've randomly took on a technical support engineer role, because let's face it, we all know that happens. So you then are reaching out to HR people, and then they come onto your profile, and the last thing on there is a technical support engineer job. Why will that HR person engage with you? Doesn't matter if you try and cover it in your tagline of I do all of these things. It does. I mean, it obviously comes back to niching. So that's a really common mistake, is that, and it's the same, again, if you're doing candidate outreach, would argue if you've got no jobs on your website and you've got no vacancies on LinkedIn either, then it's the same thing. If you outreach to somebody and say, hey, I'm hiring for this job and I'd love to talk to you about it, they should be able to find that job somewhere. Or at least understand it, as opposed to coming back and going, well, that makes no sense. You've reached out to me, I'm a HR person, but you've just got engineering vacancies. Why do I want to engage with you from that side? So really common.
Okay, so again, it's going back to this joined up approach to it.
Yeah.
And strategy. Okay, so give us an example of somebody who is making LinkedIn work well for them. Like, can you share a?
I tell you, do you know who always comes to mind? And we both know her. I would say Leisha Holmes is a very good example. I mean, I haven't seen Leisha in, God, how long, Katie? Is it 20 years since I last physically met Leisha in the flesh, I reckon? And I know a lot of what's happened in Leisha's life in the last 20 years. She's a rec to rec. She's somebody I will recommend as a rec to rec. I haven't seen her in 20 years, but yeah, I would recommend her from that side. And I would recommend her because she's in my market and she's very clear about what she does from that side. So she's a good person to follow for content. Shares a lot, but it always comes back to what she's doing. I would say she's very much a LinkedIn influencer. If you ever listen.
You're right. Yeah, and she's also actually very, very good at being vulnerable and sharing.
Yeah, which is
the individual, isn't she?
And that's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's fine as well. You can just talk business and give opinion. That you don't have to share everything that's going on. I will guarantee you, though, if you do share your vulnerabilities, I think my two most popular posts this year were my children finishing their A-levels, and one before was my daughter having a car accident from that side. Off the back of my children's A-levels, I think that got me like 2 or 3 conversations with past clients who obviously, you know, were seeking to re-engage from that side. So people buy from people. It's a really old age saying. But if they know who you are, and if you're showing up all the time, and this is LinkedIn is another touch point at all times. So there is lots of, like, we appreciate there's lots of LinkedIn people that are really quiet. My brother doesn't post on LinkedIn. However, whenever we go for Sunday dinners at my mother's house, he likes to read to the family my latest post. It's horrendous. I do not enjoy it in any way, shape, or form. He also tells my kids when I've posted about them, which really upsets me because they don't really do LinkedIn. So it's the only place I can share a photo without being told off. However, it does show me, though, that I'm still showing up in his feed just because he lingers on my posts from that side without me ever really seeing any evidence that he was there. Likewise, Kate, as you know, I recently canoed across Scotland. The volume of messages that I've had from people that haven't engaged with the posts, they haven't liked them, but then they've dropped me a note going, oh my God, I just saw your canoe holiday, it looked fantastic. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then we're off. This is a real place to keep in touch with people without physically keeping in touch. In our industry, they're probably on LinkedIn. So sorry, I've definitely got a ghost.
Great. Okay, this is super. So let's wrap it up with some key takeaways for the audience then. So what are the most important things that recruitment business owners need to keep in mind and need to put into place when it comes to LinkedIn branding?
So first of all, my key thing is have a strategy meeting. What do you want to come out of LinkedIn? What's the ultimate goal? And if it's just something flimsy like win more business or win more candidates, let's really drill down on that. Like specifically, how many? How are we going to know if this is successful? And then we can track a plan back. My second key thought on that would be does whatever the key goal is, does everything about your LinkedIn, your like static, your tagline, your photo, etc., does that all link in? So for example, if you are using LinkedIn to generate candidates, does your tagline say, I help these candidates, or I do this with these candidates, as opposed to recruitment consultant, which is what I see loads of taglines. That doesn't tell me who you are. If I'm checking you out, I need to know exactly who you are, and that should speak to me, the person you're trying to target. Don't worry about the others. If you're not trying to target them, we don't need to speak to them. The company should masquerade that as well. Personally, and this is opinion, I don't like it when companies have all the same blurb written about them and they just whack it to a consultant to copy and paste in. Like get your guys talking about why they've joined the company. They're your advocates on that side. And then set some form of strategy, but be prepared to support. If you want people to talk about why they've joined LinkedIn, why they've joined the company, read it, proof it. You don't need to, but don't approve it. Like this is their social that they're allowing you to be part of. From that side. And then more importantly, track the results, track your engagement, and make sure your back end matches up with your front end.
Okay. Okay. So first step was, you said, get clear on the intention. What's the outcome that we want? Then to do that brainstorm call and come out with the actions of how.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you think is important that we haven't covered today when it comes to LinkedIn branding for recruitment businesses?
I just say have a bit of fun with it, like leave your inhibitions at the door. I can't think of any post that I've ever read on LinkedIn that I've gone, oh God, that's going to stay with me for life. Like I'm going to remember that and associate it with that person. Like your opinion of LinkedIn isn't everybody else's. So I would play, see what works. If a post gets no engagement, I won't lose any sleep over it. If a post gets massive engagement, you might do this, like, oh, like why? I shared a picture of my dog, by the way, that is out at the moment on LinkedIn. So I don't think the puppies are going to win anymore. But it just might get a massive amount of engagement. But then look at what you do with it. I suppose, and that's another kind of helpful hint. If you've got people liking your posts, they are effectively going, I like this. So look through your likes. And if there's people on there that's relevant, go through the back end. I just saw you liked my post recently. How the heck are you? Or I just saw you like my post. And actually, you're the exact person I'm hoping would like my post because we work in the same market. It's your first opener to a conversation. So, and again, I suppose going back to what you said at the start, but we want to win vacancies. You can get lost in LinkedIn, like I hear that. You can be scrolling and suddenly scrolling hours later. But if you've got a really specific plan, so my last post had 6 likes, so I'm going to see who it was. And if anybody's relevant, I'm going to reach out. If not, boom, I'm going to go back on the phone.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm really taking from this is that LinkedIn, doesn't have to be a mystery. It doesn't have to be hard. But what you're saying is have fun, relax with it a bit. Yes, you need a plan. Yes, you need a strategy, and certainly you need consistency. But it is an incredible tool for business growth. It's about getting clarity and then breaking that down and making it simple. But also, I think what I'm hearing is that people could just relax with it. It doesn't have to be. It's the classic, isn't it? It's like we say, how many people get that sort of rabbit in a headlight when they pick up the phone to a client, and then it's like, oh, I need to talk about recruitment, and ask about a vacancy. And again, it's the same thing with LinkedIn, isn't it? It's like, look, actually, use it to your best advantage, but also what's the information that's there in front of you? Because you're right, people do buy people, and people want to hear about other people. If it resonates, if it touches something in them, then they're more likely to want to have that conversation or open the conversation with you in the first place, aren't they?
Yeah, sadly, the least interesting thing about you on your LinkedIn profile is probably that you work in recruitment. That's always my opinion. Because if there's other stuff on there, and certainly if it's current or speaks to people in some way, that will engage conversations. I talk a lot about weightlifting on mine. I work within a recruitment industry. Typically, stereotypically, a lot of people in recruitment have sporting interests. So just by talking about that means that I then have synergy. Now, I don't know, if my hobby was stamp collecting, I personally don't come across many stamp collectors in recruitment, or if I do, then if any of you are watching that, stamp collectors, please correct me. So if I was talking extensively about that, it may not resonate with my audience as much. So sometimes it does look like I've just thrown stuff up on LinkedIn, but generally in my head, there is a connection. Weightlifting, other people will see this. I can talk about consistency and intensity, and then I can link it back to just a very quick soundbite at the bottom. Look, if this resonates with you, this is who I am. Slide into my DMs and we'll have a chat type scenario. But people, and again, I would argue that Potentially Leisha does this, and definitely a handful of others will get their work inbound now on LinkedIn because of the work that they've done. And isn't
Yeah.
that the holy grail for us?
Yeah, the investment they put in, totally. That's what people want. That's certainly what I hear. Okay, amazing. So, Jane, thank you very much. Totally invaluable insights. For those of you listening, if you found today's session valuable, please do subscribe. Leave us a review, comment below. And if you are somebody who wants to help scaling their recruitment business, watch our free training. It helps your team make 5, 10, even 20 extra placements a month, reliably and predictably in the next 30 days. So click on any of the links. We've got lots of free resources below. And until next time, keep growing your business. Thank you so much, Jane, for your time and session today. So we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.
Take care.